So 2 years ago I started doing landscape photography, and what was really invaluable 2 years ago, for me at least, was all of the content and people that were on YouTube basically explaining everything you needed to know at a beginner level within landscape photography. So what I decided to do at the tail end of 2019 was to start my own YouTube channel, because what I wanted to do was to help and inspire people that were in the same position as I was 2 years ago. Now, I'm still certainly a beginner and I'm still learning heaps, but what I wanted to do in this video was to pass on to you my top 5 tips, if you like, for being a beginner landscape photographer. So at the end of these 5 tips, you're not going to have some magical formula that no one knows about that I've passed on to you, because there is no magical formula to make you better at landscape photography. So these top 5 tips are sort of the things that you need to remember on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, however often you get out and shoot landscapes. So let's start with number 5. My number 5, I spoke earlier about how important YouTube was to me when I first started. The likes of Photo Tripper, Gavin Hardcastle, Adam Gibbs, Nigel Danson, all those types of people were super influential for me, and they passed on some amazing advice, and I've been able to utilize that throughout these last 2 years in landscape photography. So my suggestion is to go onto YouTube and just explore and research. I'm one of these guys that when I get into something, I have to research everything about it. You know, I have to learn everything there is to know about panoramas, or I have to learn everything there is to know about depth of field. If you're struggling with a particular aspect of your photography, then just go onto YouTube. YouTube is full of so much information and so many great photographers with their own channels that it's basically a free resource for you to learn how to become a better landscape photographer. It's why I'm on there. I'm on there to try and help people in your position to become better landscape photographers, and it's a free resource. So make sure you fully utilize YouTube, and if you ever have any particular problems or with your shooting, or there's something you're unsure about, jump on there. There's always going to be a YouTube video for a problem that you might have. That's one thing I have learned. So my number 4 is to do research. So if you've never been to a location before, then make sure that you jump on Google Maps, obviously find out how to get there, but also use Google Maps and Google Earth to search for those little nooks and crannies that other people might not have been to before as well. Instagram is actually really good as well, because if you search for the location in Instagram, if anyone has tagged that location before, you'll be able to see the photos that they've taken. Now, I don't mean go onto Instagram and steal other people's compositions. I mean go on there, see the type of compositions that they've shot, what the area might be like at that time of year, and then draw inspiration from that. Another really great app to use is one called Photo Pills. So Photo Pills is going to allow you to plan your shoots a lot better. It's fantastic for astrophotography because it shows you where the Milky Way will be at a certain time in the sky. It's fantastic for sunrise and sunset. It tells you what direction the sun's going to be rising from, and then it shows you also what way the sun is going to go across the sky. So it's super useful for planning out any particular shots. So make sure you do your research. Sometimes it's nice to go into an area completely blind, or it's nice to go into an area and not know anything about it and just be inspired. But if you're like me, it's always really good to do your research beforehand so you can go in as prepared as possible to try and get the shots that you want. One of the most important things that you can do as a beginner landscape photographer is to critique your photos. So to look at them with a critical eye and figure out what you don't like about a shot and what you do like about a shot. So think about the fundamentals of photography when doing this. So think about the rule of thirds in composition. What do you or don't you like about your composition? Think about the aperture that you used. Were you trying to focus on a specific detail on the shot and you didn't use an appropriate aperture? Or were you trying to capture a wide scene and you didn't use an appropriate aperture? Think about your shutter speed as well. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? And then that'll give you a better idea of where you're going right with photography and where you might be going wrong, because not a lot of us, when we take these photos and then we do them up in Lightroom, we don't look at them critically and think, well, what could I have done better, or what do I really like about that shot? And another important thing to do as well is not be critical of your own photos, just your own photos, but also be critical of other photographers' photos. So think of the photographers that you really love and their photos that you really love that you see on Instagram or 500 pics or wherever. Look at those photos and actually figure out what you really like about them. If you don't like the photos, and figure out what you don't like about them. It'll help you to develop your own style, and it'll help you to be more critical when you're actually in the field and taking the shots. Why am I wearing a synthetic down jacket on a hot day like this? Why did I think this was a good idea? Am I trying to look like some outdoorsman or something like that? So, number 2 is something that I need to constantly remind myself about. And that is, gear does not matter. When you're a beginner landscape photographer, having the best gear or having the best lens or whatever it is doesn't matter, because really it's about you getting out into the elements and into the landscapes and actually taking the photos. There are more advantageous gear to have when you're a beginner. There are certain cameras that are easier to use. There are certain lenses that are built to withstand certain elements if you're going to be in those elements. So those are some things to consider. But really, all you need is a good mirrorless or DSLR camera at a beginner level, and if you have to pick 2 lenses, then a wide angle and a telephoto lens. But honestly, don't focus too much on gear, because gear doesn't make you a better landscape photographer. There are people that go out there with iPhones and take some amazing photos these days. You know, back, maybe 20, even 10 years in, people made livings of being landscape photographers, people paid their mortgages being a landscape photographer. But now anyone can go out and buy a cheap camera, or anyone can go out and buy a cheap mirrorless, or anyone can own an iPhone and take great photos. It shows that you just don't need the most expensive gear to be able to go take a photo. And really, as a beginner landscape photographer, that's all you've got to do. It's just go out and take photos. So don't focus on the gear, focus on developing and focus on learning and focus on becoming a better landscape photographer. Okay, my number one tip. My number one tip is to remember to enjoy yourself. Remember to take in those amazing moments when you're out in these amazing landscapes. Often we'll go on location and all we see is the landscape through our viewfinder like this. We forget to actually take in the surroundings. So remember to actually enjoy it, put down your camera and actually take in the moment. 90% of us don't rely on photography to pay our bills, and I'm sure if you did, you're not going to be watching this video on Regan Neale's top 5 tips for beginner landscape photographers. So remember to enjoy it. Hobbies are meant to be enjoyed. So make sure that when you go out and when you come back and you might not have good images, that you went out there, you experienced nature and you experienced the amazing landscapes that surround us. Okay guys, so that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got tips that you want to share, then make sure you leave them down in the comments below. I would really appreciate it if you could leave me a like and also subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. But otherwise guys, good luck out there, remember to have fun, and I'll see you on the next one.